All right, guys. So thank you to James and Mary for sticking about and getting ready for part two. So what we're basically going to do is, this can be a bit more conversational because there's only three of you guys, but we're going to be going into what the focus is in the next part of part two, and it's a little bit more detailed, and there's going to be some bigger words and stuff in here, but I've put them up here purposely to understand that there you don't have to remember all the different bits of information, but it's just so you understand things have different roles as we go through. So first thing is, now what we did at the beginning was we used nutrition to get you a result. And when we got you the result, that was all we were kind of mainly looking at. But now we're looking at utilizing it a little bit more. So you guys have shown that you're capable of tracking, you're capable of getting results, you're capable of being consistent and adherent. Now we're trying to utilize that to get a little bit more out of your food. So the first thing we look at is making it work for you and optimizing that. So taking advantage of all the little hacks and stuff that you can get from the nutrition. We touched on bits and pieces of them as we went throughout the overall Evolve program, but try think of it now as more so than just getting results. Think about how you feel, how you're going to be progressing, how your training is going, how your recovery is going, and taking advantage of all of the little things that we can go through. And then we look at results as anthropometrically, physiologically, and mentally. So anthropometrically is obviously going to be just losing body fat or gaining muscle or whatever the goal is there. Physiologically is going to be how you feel, skin, hair, nails, overall health in that sense. And then mentally is going to be cognitively. You can massively improve your cognitive output through nutrition. So that can be focus, that can be clarity, that can be just overall management of mental fatigue and stress. And then we have maintaining progress. So we're going to have a whole slide on this, but maintaining progress is key. So what you'll find is, from speaking to a few of the people, a lot of people who did part one, after part one ended, they gained a bit of the weight back because they didn't focus on maintaining. So I'm going to show you how to do that, why it's important, and then talk about the benefit of maintaining and what that can mean, because a lot of people think of staying still as not progressing, but you can progress more in a maintenance phase in terms of other aspects than just fat loss, for example. And then looking at strategizing your nutrition into more of a block sense, kind of like what I was talking about in part one, but mainly looking at it as where can you really give 100% to something and why did you give that, and then where can you move your next block into and why you should shift the focus. So that could look like a fat loss phase for the next 4 to 6 weeks, which is probably a good time to do that because you're going to be with a group and it's adherence and that type of stuff. But then looking at a maintenance block. So the reason why maintenance blocks are so good is because you can massively improve your strength, you can massively improve your body composition. So just because you're not losing weight doesn't mean you can't change your composition. You can build more muscle, you can get a lot healthier, you can help your overall mood and things a lot more so with the extra calories. So it's very important to take blocks like that regardless of how much weight you want to lose, because if you don't do it, you actually hinder your progress in here a lot. You'll notice in the maintenance phase you can progress way more because your energy levels, you're basically giving your body, it's asking for this, you're giving it this, and it's just going to be like, right, okay, I can now push 15 reps of X weight, I can then take it to 20 reps. I need to progress this if you keep pushing failure. Whereas in a deficit, it's not as optimal to do that. So there's going to be things that we'll go over throughout it. So first, just talking about maintenance is, what did you do after you maintain results? So that could be, like I was saying, did you just stop tracking and then the results went? Did you do half and half? Did you kind of like, oh, I kind of know what I'm doing, I'm kind of keeping the habits from last time, but I'm still enjoying myself? Or did you go completely off the rails and just like, I just went to start eating a lot of bad food and didn't track my food? There's a lot of different things that people did. And now this time I would like to make sure that you know what to do after that. So what you do after is as important as what you did during as well, because there's no point in you consistently making a load of results and making progress and then losing that and repeating the cycle forward and back, forward and back. You need to lose fat, then you need to make a second goal, and that could be improving body composition, which is fat and muscle mass. And then after that, looking at where else can we improve that. And then another part of the maintenance, like I was saying, is mentally looking at your overall stress, knowledge, and fatigue, all that stuff, and making sure you're eating the right foods so you're not deficient in any of the vitamins or minerals that we go over. Drop-off periods are important. So maintenance doesn't mean drop-off. Maintenance means you're looking at a different shift of focus. A drop-off period could be, I have a lot of social events and going for drinks, nights out, dinners, party, holiday, whatever it is. That's a drop-off period, and that's something that you can calculate to manage in. But it's important that you're not just going from fat loss to drop off, fat loss to drop off, because then your body is never at its balance, and that, you'll see later on, has an effect on your health. And the important bit of that is you don't notice that overnight. That takes time to notice it, and generally then when you do notice it, it's tough to reverse that impact because you've been doing it for so long without it. Then yeah, so eating and maintenance, this is another part of it. Like, it's hormonal balance. So basically, like that, your body prioritizes when it's in a fat loss phase. So if you're constantly in fat loss and then in drop off where you're not eating well, you're kind of getting your calories from drink, alcohol, or bad foods, as they would say, your hormonal balance is going to be off because your body isn't giving it everything it needs, and it's prioritizing. And again, I've got a list of them all up here so you guys can see what we're talking about, because you don't have to remember them all, but if you're aware of the fact that that does happen, it will help you as you kick through it. So appetite control is another one, because like that, if we're X weight, we drop to this new weight, our new amount of food, our amount of calories that we need to eat is less, and it's different. You have to get your body used to eating a certain amount. So if you're constantly in a deficit, you're not going to, your body will get used to eating that deficit. So you'll find week 1, week 2, you might still be hungry. Week 3, week 4, you start to level out, you think, all right, okay, I can actually handle this, I'm used to it. That same thing happens with maintenance. If you constantly go from deficit up here, your body doesn't know where it levels out. It doesn't have a time period to balance everything out, and doesn't have a time period to get used to you at this new weight. So if you were, for example, 100 kilos and then you went down to 95 kilos or went down to 90 kilos, your body hasn't been at 90 kilos quite a long time. Your body doesn't understand what it's like. You don't know how much you need to eat. Everything needs to be regulated again and rebuilt again. So it's important to take them times. And then disease prevention, just because if you constantly don't give your body what it needs, long-term heart disease, there's cancers, there's a lot of different things that can happen over time. Now, not all of them are diet related, but they do have a big impact on it. So what does this mean to results? So kind of gone over that just so I don't go on too long about it, but your composition will change regardless of your calories. If you're eating the perfect amount for your body, you will still be able to get leaner, because what will happen is your body will just build more muscle mass. The more muscle you have, the leaner you do look, and that will get you results in the long term too. It's not as efficient as a way of fat loss, but it's a good way of gaining that extra bit of muscle mass, that extra bit of strength, which improves a lot of other things. So now we need to look at MyFitnessPal, utilizing that a little bit more. This is very short, just because I kind of touched on it in the last thing as well, but making your own meals and menus, make this as easy as possible for you, particularly when you're doing it the second time around, because you don't want to have fatigue and burnout of constantly being on the app. So easy thing, for example, if you're taking vitamins, minerals and things like that in the morning, and it gets the same thing every morning, just, if you are somebody who's consistent like that, just make a meal. So go onto the app, use its facility of saying, create a new meal, and just call it vitamins, and just add all your vitamins in once, in your creatine or whatever it is you're taking. And all you have to do is in the morning, hit one tick instead of constantly typing in vitamin D, multivitamin, Baraka, whatever it is, you're just doing it in one go, get it done. Use the app's facilities to make it easier for you. So that could be, if you're having 3 different breakfasts every week and you have to add in the blueberries, add in this, if you're eating the same amount every time, make it once and then just tick in breakfast Weetabix, breakfast porridge, breakfast omelette. If there are 3 breakfasts, for example, you were cycling through, one tick instead of adding in 10 to 14 different ingredients in your breakfast. Make it easier for yourself. Then read the nutritional tab. So I was getting you guys to slightly do this in the last time, but now at the end of each week, take 5 minutes to yourself on a Sunday. It could literally be when you're having coffee on a Sunday, and just look at the nutrition tab and see your week view and say, did I get my macros correct? Yes or no? Then look at your micros and say, all right, I'm low in magnesium, for example. Then just say to me, is there any foods that will have magnesium in it? And I'll say, introduce this to your diet next week, and look at it there and then. And each week, that improvement doesn't take a lot of effort. That just means 5 minutes reading it. I'm deficient in this, or my protein wasn't great this week, my carbs weren't great this week, whatever it was, and then like, that's going to be the goal this week, to do exactly what I did, except replace X with Y, and then kick on from there. So that's important to do for you to improve, because then when you get through this phase, you should be in a point where your base meals and your base food is all kind of really set, that then when you go back to a maintenance period, or a period where you're dropping off and taking a bit of time off from it, you'll still be doing the base things. If you understand, right, to keep my magnesium high, I have an orange every morning, for example, something like that, and that keeps you in the loop and keeping the things from preventing over the long term of constantly being deficient in something. Then weigh-ins. Use the app, it makes a graph for you, makes it look really good over the 6 weeks. If you're keeping a track of your weight instead of trying to remember it in your head, have a graph in front of you, just use it there. It's nice and simple. And then, like I was saying, I already touched on it, assess your week. See if you did what you needed to do, revert back to your week and what was good, what wasn't good, move on from there. I'll give you feedback on that. So you guys will be giving you a little bit more feedback because there's not as many of you. So it'll be easier for me to give you a bit more tips and kicking on from there. So next is your performance. So I gave you guys some meal examples of performance for before and then performance for after last time, but this is a little bit as to why we would do that, and a bit of effectiveness, because you're far more likely to do something if you understand there actually is a statistical advantage to that. So digestion and timing, that's kind of like we talked about in Evolve 1, understanding the simple and complex carbs. Simple and complex carbs, you're not going to have a massive bowl of pasta 20 minutes before doing a conditioning class, for example. So be smart with your foods, understand what works for you. So don't just come into the gym and say, oh, well, I had something beforehand, and not really take note of it. Think in your head, how did I feel in that session? Looking at your log, did my numbers improve? Am I feeling good? If not, try something else. There's loads of different pre-meals that you can try that will be better suited to you. Some people digest foods differently. So try different things, test them all out, but note it down and write down your energy levels and see what you feel like and how that session went. And then the more data you have over time, then you might say, this is the one thing I like to have before the gym and that's all I have. Or you might have 5 different things. It completely depends on the person, but it's very important. So just a simple guide, 30 to 60 minutes before for simple and 60 to 120 minutes before for complex. Just again, because there's a big difference between feeling full and actually having energy that's readily available. So if you come into the gym and you're feeling full, that's actually going to have that can have a negative effect. You can feel a bit more nauseous, a bit more kind of stuffy, a bit more just uncomfortable. Whereas if you have food that's readily available and digested, it'll actually be able to have an impact on your session. Again, if you're full, it'll just might feel, oh, well, I did eat before I came. That food is still on its way down. It's not doing anything for you in here. So that's just important to note. Then if we look at the effectiveness, so these numbers are crazy. In anything in training, marginal gains. So for example, you probably all see it in your lifts. You wouldn't see, for example, a 22% increase in one of your lifts just off that. To get 22, if I said to you, I can increase your squat by 22%, a lot of time you will do exactly what I told you to do. It's just unrealistic to get that. So think of them numbers as how much that can improve. So what lower rate of muscle protein breakdown means is when you're in a session, you're breaking down your muscles. And when your muscles are breaking down, you're obviously then your ability to push out in that session is obviously going to be impacted and it's going to reduce your output in that session. Also, your recovery is what's happening is when your body is taking from your muscles, it means it's taking the protein from the muscles and using that as fuel to get through the rest of the session. So if we can reduce that by 22%, you can massively get more out of your session before and after. Then additionally to that, 15% in protein synthesis. Protein synthesis is basically building muscle. That's building new sheets of muscle tissue and adding onto it. A 15% increase is monstrous. That's huge. So if you're not having the pre-workout food, you're losing out on that, and that's massive to what you're trying to do here. You're trying to build strength, you're trying to build muscle, and we're giving you a chance to have 15% more of an effect on it. And that's not just a random number pulled out, that's like over a meta-analysis of multiple different studies that have found that this is the number. And then we have a 10% increase in endurance, generally due to the both of these, that you're in the tests that they did, people who were having the pre-workout food versus those who weren't were able to produce more 10% of the time in the endurance tests when they had the food versus when they didn't. So again, these numbers are crazy to not take advantage of. They're big numbers, and if you aren't doing it, start doing it, and then start experimenting with the food to suit you, and that way you'll definitely get a little bit more out of your training, particularly if you're going to be in a deficit, because your training will take a hit when your calories are less. These numbers definitely help with that. Now, the opposite end of that is the post. So what do you do after? So increase insulin sensitivity, elevated protein synthesis, and reduce muscle breakdown. So the same things that we've just basically looked at there, but this one is quite important. So basically that means that your body is going to be absorbing food at a higher rate in them 0 to 60 minutes after. So as close to after the session as you can. If you can get the food in, your body is looking for it. So it's trying to get the nutrients, it's trying to get the carbs, and it's trying to get the protein. The protein to rebuild the muscle. So as we say, muscle repair. The glycogen is to replenish the energy stores. So if we don't do that, your body has no choice but to take from the muscle again because it needs energy right now. It can't just go without it. So if we replenish them glycogen stores efficiently in them 0 to 60 minutes and repair the muscle, your recovery afterwards is huge, which you'll see in the numbers after. Elevated protein synthesis, again, is the same thing. It's growth and repair. And we have reduced muscle breakdown, just like I talked about there, taking from the muscle. You're not letting the muscle break down as much, meaning your recovery is going to be better. What does that look like in numbers? A 50% increase in protein synthesis. So your recovery is going to be way better. Like that's literally half. 50% is massive. Like again, even bigger than numbers before. If we're not taking advantage of that, your recovery is going to suffer. When you're in a deficit, your recovery is already going to be impacted. So making sure that you take advantage of this is vital for you. Regardless of how many calories you have, this would be a priority for me if I was looking at it. 35% better glycogen replenishment because your body is looking to absorb it. So again, that means that it's basically able to recharge the energy system that you have and give you more give you more energy, get them ready for the next day, get them ready for the next session. And then what they found is when people were doing this versus when they weren't, they had a 20% increase in performance in following workouts. That means they recovered better, but also the muscles were repairing at a faster rate. They were making more progress and doing better in their following workouts. So just because you train legs on a Monday and then bench on a Wednesday, that doesn't mean that you're fully recovered. Just because the DOMS is gone doesn't mean that the recovery has actually happened. And also, like recovery look like this. If, for example, this is the muscle, we break it down to here. If your nutrition isn't good enough, it might just about return to baseline, and you're just constantly in a cycle of just staying the same and you're maintaining. Whereas if we can break it down and build it to a new level, that's how you get stronger, and that's how it happens in a maintenance, in a deficit, anything like that. It's just harder in a deficit for that to happen. So these numbers, make sure you don't have to remember the exact figures, just know it's important, and if you're not taking advantage of it, you're really missing out on a lot. So it's key this time around that I know we kind of slightly introduced that in the last time, but if you aren't doing this, your training is going to be massively impacted. And that's in a deficit in maintenance and wherever it is. Okay, next we have micronutrients. So this is where you don't have to remember all of the vitamins or all of the functions of them, but I'm showing you because look at the amount of things that your body has to do before it does what you want it to do. So everyone wants to have more muscle, everyone wants to be looking stronger, everyone wants to get stronger, but these all come first versus what actually happens. So vitamins and minerals make up your micronutrients. So vitamins are organic compounds that are crucial for various metabolic processes and overall health. So what organic compounds means is your body makes them itself, but your body's ability to do so will depend on the level of nutrition that you have and the level of your overall health is too. There is some vitamins that you can only get through the diet, like the ones from the fish, for example, like I was talking about earlier. But as a whole, that's just general thumb that your better nutrition equals better vitamin production and means overall health is a bit better. So a deficiency in any vitamin can lead to a range of health problems, most of which you may not notice until a health event or long-term discomfort presents or resides. So that could be something like people who have poor sleep for a long period of time, they don't relate it back to the nutrition. There was a few guys that once they started to improve their diet and their overall kind of micronutrients in the last Evolve program, they were saying their sleep was much better because their body is able to produce better vitamins, able to produce more and able to obviously give the body the nutrients it needs. So what we're going to look at next is the most important vitamins and what they do. So if you look at the words that are in there and look at them, just even think of it, look, if you look at DNA, energy production, nerve function, immune function, skin, bone health, blood clotting, they're far more important to your body than building muscle and looking after these things. So if we aren't getting enough of these, your body isn't going to say, oh, well, Joe, let me make you bigger, stronger, and harder to move. It's going to look at it as saying, right, let's look at priority number 1 and then 2. And then what happens is if we're deficient in these, it's about preservation again, and it's just going to try cover its bases as much as it possibly can, but at some point it will go. So you'll see with the minerals, some of them are a little bit more obvious to notice, but like when we get onto it later, iron, for example, you'll see people are they're low in iron. If they stand up really quickly, they get lightheaded. It's again, that's another thing they don't really associate with the diet. They think that's something else, but again, you can fix that if you can get rid of that deficiency. So it's the same thing goes with vitamins. So if you have a quick look at what they say, like you've got things like nerve function, red blood cell formation, antioxidants, immune function, collagen. All of these things are very important to your overall focus. So just kind of have it in the back of your head. And then when we're looking at that assessment on the Sunday, it gives you the information. If you're low in vitamin B, there's a lot of different functions here that we need to make sure your body has. So that's a place where you could say to me, what foods have this? Where can I get more of it? And then I can help you out with that and we can kick through there. So again, just pay attention to it and just understand that there is a bigger picture with it. Then we look at minerals. So minerals are inorganic. So that basically means that you don't make them yourself and you have to get them from food. So essentially the same thing. It's nearly the same definition as the vitamins. It's that they're inorganic. Then what are they? So calcium, iron, magnesium, potassium, sodium, zinc, phosphorus, and iodine. So again, some more important than others, but you don't have to get 100% technical where you're getting exactly enough magnesium, exactly enough iron, but just don't be deficient in it. And it can often be very easy to manage. So you guys obviously could do part 1. You've showed you could do adherence. If you're doing it anyway, why not just make a small bit more effort? It's not going to take any more time. Just it requires a little bit more head thinking and thinking, right, my iron is low. Where do I get iron? Do I eat any red meat? No. Try that on a Wednesday, just once a week. And that's not a huge effort to make a change to help you balance it, something that can give you more benefits in the long run. And the things that you have to do for a period of time to understand that you'll feel better. So if 6 weeks later, you've been really keeping an eye on your vitamins and minerals, then you might start to notice, oh, I actually do feel way better. I feel more energized. I feel less fatigued. I feel more clarity. I feel like I've got more to give, and your energy recovery, your sleep, all these things could be better as an impact to that. But like I was saying, it takes ages to notice it, and sometimes it's before it's too late. And then also the opposite end, it can take a while to get used to it, but your body gets used to not having them, so you just feel normal and you think that is your new normal. But if you can get your vitamins and minerals on check and you start to feel a lot better, that can become your new normal, and then you'll understand you're deficient in them as you go through. So again, just a few of their functions: bone health, fluid balance, nerve and muscle function, oxygen transport, metabolic processes. They are a lot more important again than your training and nutrition, so it's important to note that these things require attention, and also for your overall health in the long run. Obviously it's great to look better, feel better and stuff, but as a whole, if you can get these little changes to your diet, it's again might require 10% more effort, but it can make a big difference to you in the long run, to your overall health the next 30, 40, 50 years. Okay, so if you guys have any questions about any of that, or would like to ask anything about any of the slides in particular, just crack on. Are we okay? Go ahead. Yeah. So creatine is a molecule that your body uses as energy production. So like the creatine is very, very effective. It's actually, I think it is the most researched supplement in the world, because basically imagine it as like, this is not maybe not the best analogy, but you know when you go into a petrol station, you see like premium petrol and petrol, like it's like premium energy, like it's like a faster thing. If you're squatting for 3 reps and your body needs energy right there, right now, creatine attached onto the muscle and helps kick in with that sort of thing. So for strength training, it massively helps because you can double your amount. Your body has creatine in it, that's what it does use. But if you have more of it in your body, it's more readily available. Your body will then produce more for the session. So it's if you take creatine consistently and actually apply yourself in training, it's a guaranteed increase in your lifts, like straight off the bat. It's basically just a powder. You take 5 grams of it a day, and that's it. You can put it into your porridge, you can put it into your protein shake, put it into whatever. But it's basically all it does. It's essentially just it makes you stronger, and it'll make your muscle mass increase. So if you do take it, it does make you hold more water. So let's say, for example, there's a phase where your body get used to it, but let's say after 4 weeks, you might say, oh, my weight's crept up, but it's probably fluid retention because the creatine now is readily available in your stores. So that can happen, but I'd recommend taking it. It's the most safe research supplement in the world. You will see articles that say it affects your liver, but it's not true. It's been shown countless times. Like there's a thing with any study, if you ever do see something that it's called like kind of cherry picking. It's basically like if I wanted to prove a point and I ignore 1,000 studies to get one that says what I wanted to say, that's what you'll see a lot of them articles do. So if you ever see them, just click into studies, and sometimes it's not even a study, it's like a really bad written journal article. So creatine is definitely one to go for if you consistently take it. See, pre-workout is different. So pre-workout is caffeine. So I don't take it personally. I use food because your body adapts to the amount of caffeine you have. And pre-workout, I think, is usually the average at like 12 cups of coffee nearly worth of caffeine. So it's a really strong boost. It will help and it will make you have a better session. But also your sleep is then going to be affected after because it takes caffeine 12 hours to fully get out of your system. So if you had a session, you train at 8 o'clock in the day sometimes. If you did that at night and you went to sleep, you might still sleep, but your quality of sleep is going to be affected. And also, caffeine is effective, but if you take that 3 times a week for the next 10 weeks, your dosage is going to have to increase because your body's ability to get used to it is going to go up, and at some point then you're going to be taking dangerous amounts of it. So I just don't do it unless it was like a big event and it was like you really wanted to buzz up and go for it, then you could go for it. Or if you're really tired one day and you didn't want to waste the gym session, once every now and again would be fine, but I would try to avoid it and I would go for coffee over one of them. Any other questions? Yeah. In what sense?
On a diet all the time.
Yeah.
I just felt that it was like all you could think of was it's a diet, it's not normal.
Yeah. Okay. So like I would look at it as, think of this as more of when you're on the deficit, you're dieting to achieve a fat loss goal. When you're on a maintenance, you're then trying to rebalance everything in your diet. So you're trying to get your body used to eating a certain amount. And then what you have to do is at some point kind of need to let go of the trying to be absolutely perfect and look at it as, am I covering most of my bases? Like, are my macronutrients decent? Am I covering the base majority of the vitamins and minerals? And then calculate things to make it where you're not just being restrictive, that you're still enjoying your meals out, still enjoying your things here. Like, what was it that you found hard? Was it found that you couldn't get the food in to enjoy it, or?
It just felt such a diet. Like, it's only 100 up, so it wasn't 100 or 150 up, so it wasn't a huge amount of calories.
Yeah.
Up on it, but it was like more protein to get in, more. Like,
Yeah.
It felt restrictive.
Yeah. So what you could look at doing the next time is, like with your goals in this next one, if you said to me you wanted to look at maintenance, we could have a look at, first of all, the 150 calorie intake that went up. Did that keep your weight the same, or were you still losing weight?
No, it went up.
Went up. Like how much up?
Well, when I maintained and stayed maintained, it went up a couple of pounds.
Yeah.
Not too dramatic.
Yeah, so that was probably the thing I was saying earlier about probably the fluid retention. So you're just eating a bit more food, so your thing is up. And then after, if it leveled out, so then the next part of that is looking at getting your body used to eating that amount, because what happens is when you lose weight, you're burning less calories. So your body then needs to get used to eating less because you don't need as much to do anymore. So like if I was, let's say for example, if I lost 10 kilos and then for me to get the same output as I was doing before, I'd have to walk around with a 10 kilo weight vest. You know what I mean? So my actual output isn't as good. So you just have to the reason why maintenance is important after weight loss is because it kind of gets you used to it for a period of time. But what I would try to do is look at swapping a few things in that. So reduce your protein amount, because you're in maintenance, let's say at 30% calories with 1,500 calories, let's say your protein is at 30%. If calories go to 1,650, and you drop your protein 25%, it's probably the same amount. So you're getting enough in that way, and that way you can give more to carbs or something like that if that's the food that you found that you're hard to do it. So maybe playing around with the split a little bit differently, and then looking at it in the front of saying, right, what can I do that's going to make this bit more day to day and regular for me, rather than thinking of it as I have to do this, otherwise I fail in that sense.
Still point to the next few weeks as well.
Yeah.
And that's what did it. And now and only now when I'm looking at what you're saying there again, it's registering with me because I've been sore. I've been not sleeping. It's all because I'm not adhering
Yeah.
the last few weeks, and it's like I can feel the backslip.
Yeah, you've done the first phase a couple of times. Now this is why we're doing level 2. You've done it.
Yeah, and it's like, but I really did stick with it this time, and I really got good results. But the maintenance, I just did my head in.
Yeah. Well, now this time it'll be a lot easier now once you explain it. Like my favorite